Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Dawson. Welcome to Leader Talk. This show is proudly brought to you by Brainiact. Each week we are meeting with incredible leaders from around the world to discuss all things leadership and business insights. Each person coming on this talk show has given up their valuable time for one very clear purpose: to give back to small and medium business owners. Today, my guest co-host, Roger Jowett, former Motion Asia Pacific CEO and current Brainiact mascot franchise partner, and I are fortunate to chat to our guest, Steve Lowe. Steve is the managing director of the event management company Precedent Productions and has been helping small businesses shine for over 30 years. Using his experience in strategy, marketing, and event production, Steve founded the Australian Small Business Champion Awards in 1999 to celebrate the nation's entrepreneurial spirit. This initiative now spotlights around 1,000 small businesses from around Australia every single year. Steve also introduced the Local Business Award brand, where 25 programs are presented, involving 15,000 business registrants annually. And we are fortunate to have Steve here today to discuss this forever evolving business landscape, as well as key lessons he has learned from businesses across the country. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thank you. Lovely to see you.
We are really excited to learn from you, Steve. But as we do with all our guests, we have two fun questions to ask you before we get into the others. And the first one we have for you is, if you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would this billboard say and
Goodness,
why? Let's add
that's a
that.
difficult question to start off with, but probably what I'd have is life is about giving. That would be my billboard.
Oh, I love that. Is that the saying you go by, Steve?
That's been my what's behind everything I do. Life is really, if everyone thought about giving rather than taking, we'd have an amazing world.
And where would you put the billboard, Steve, if you had a choice?
The most prominent place for everyone to see it. The most expensive place, which I think is the billboard near Anzac Bridge.
Okay.
As you cross Anzac Bridge, I think that's probably the most expensive billboard in Australia.
Okay.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And second question, if you could pick any historical figure to join you for dinner, who would it be and what would you serve?
Okay, probably, I don't know if many of you would know Aristotle Onassis. He was a Greek multimillionaire. He actually used to own Olympic Airways and he owned a whole shipping company. But he basically built that from scratch. And ultimately, he gave a lot away as well. After he became a billionaire, basically, he gave a lot away. Now, you'd have to serve him some type of Greek food. Probably, I don't know if any of you would know pasticcio, which is, it's like a pasta pie. If you haven't tried that, go to a Greek restaurant and try it.
I haven't. Have you, Roger?
No, don't know that name, no.
Okay. Writing it down. See,
Oh,
learning already from you, Steve.
So that's the end of it, is it?
No. Wait. There's a lot more we've got for you.
Okay.
The fun part, yes. But first, we do want to ask you more. But before we do, we also want to know more about you and more about your career. I only gave that very brief intro at the beginning. So can you share with our audience, who is
sure.
Steve Lowe? What
Yeah.
has been your career?
Well, Natalie, first of all, I want to correct you. You obviously did some research where the research was incorrect. This year, the Local Business Awards are celebrating 40th anniversary. So, and we run around 30 programs each year in different areas. We're also expanding this year into Melbourne and into Brisbane. So there'll be additional programs year in, year out. How did it start? Basically, growing up in a small business, my parents had a corner store selling groceries, fruit and vegetables, and it was a milk bar. a milkshake and thick shake and ice cream, whatever. They worked from 7 in the morning till 9 at night, 7 days a week. They bought that business when I was 1 year old, and I ended up 25 years later still in the business. But as children, I'm not saying from 1 year old, but as we grew up and we went to school, we had chores to do. We had to fill the fridges up with soft drinks. The milk got delivered in milk bottles in those days. We had to put them in the fridge. We had to fill up the shelves. So we each had jobs to do. And then when we came home, we also had other things, and we'd actually be in the shop helping when customers came in as well. When my parents sold that shop, there was no recognition. And basically, I thought there must be small businesses like that slog it out day in, day out, and they were never recognised. There was no awards programs back then. So at the time, I was involved in a local community organisation, and I went to them and I said, let's start a program to recognise small business. And in that organisation, there was about 30 members. We all sat down and decided who should win awards, what kind of business should win awards from our local community. So we just turned up with a plaque, and we presented a plaque to the best restaurant, for instance, or the best fashion shop, and we had about 6 different categories. And then so that was the first year of the awards. The next year, we held a little cocktail party for around 30 people, and we invited the local mayor, and we only invited winners. So that was the second year. Then the further year, we had finalists, and then we ran that as a voluntary community program until the group closed down, and I decided to continue the program and developed it as a business. And wow, the rest is history. 40 years later, and people said to me at the time when I started as a business, it's only got a 3 or 4 year life. Little did they know that it would continue for 40 years, and it'll continue for many more years to come. So that's how, as simple as that was, that's how the business started. That's how Precedent Productions started. And from there, I've run all kinds of industry awards programs, everything from the garden industry, seafood industry, hardware, youth awards, tourism awards, and of course, and we're still doing childcare awards as well, awards for the early learning sector. I mentioned the seafood awards, which was with the Sydney Fish Market, and they came to me and said, we want a program to recognise the seafood industry. Just go and hire a hotel, a 5-star hotel, let's do it there. I said, no, we're going to do something better than that. We're going to run an event on the auction room floors where they bring the seafood in every morning. And they all looked at me and said, but it can't be done. I said, yes, it can. Now, we converted the auction room floor where the seafood comes in every morning into a ballroom. And we did that for 2 years. It'll never be done again. But we did the impossible. The loading dock became the red carpet arrival. So it looked beautiful. The only thing is we could never get rid of the smell.
That was going to be my question.
But because it was the industry, they don't smell it. Mind you, I had to throw my suit out. There was no way I'd take it to the dry cleaner. They couldn't get the smell out. Once it's in your clothes, can't get rid of that smell. So that was an experience that was created for that industry. So what else would you like to know?
I think that's a brilliant thing. For me, Steve, just listening to that, from the need for recognition for small business owners, that's where this has all come about from your very early experience. From what you've seen over the 40 years, are they just as happy to be recipients of these awards from day one to 40 years later?
Absolutely. And really, it's interesting. We see people come and go. Like every year, there's probably, I'd say, 60 to 70% are new businesses that come in, like businesses that haven't been involved in the past. And there's people that love coming every year, and they make it an annual event. It's their night, whether they win or not, they don't care. But it's their annual night out for all their staff and their family. With the awards, the criteria itself, both for the Champions Program and the Local Business Awards, the criteria makes a business stop and look at the elements of running a business. Everything from the marketing of the business, how you hire your staff, how you train your staff, what are you doing for the environment, what's your plans for the future, what's your past history, all of the elements, the elements in making a successful business. How do you get customer satisfaction? How do you measure customer service? So it's everything, not only in front of the business, not only what the customer looks at, but the management behind the scenes as well. And this is why the mechanics of the Local Business Awards, we still have, where possible, an anonymous shopper going in and judging the business from a customer's point of view. And then we also ask the business to answer certain questions all about the management of the business. So the local awards, the two elements are brought together to determine the winners. And it's really interesting how the management usually matches up with what they're doing for their customers. What are they portraying to their customers? What does the store look like? What's the service? What's the range of products? What's the cost that you're putting out there? And cost is very interesting because, believe it or not, from region to region, even around Sydney, there's a variance in costs. You look at the petrol stations, for instance, and you'll see a report on the news or on one of those morning programs, and they say the cheap petrol is in this area and this area. And it's usually the same areas that it's cheapest. There's certain areas that it's always the most expensive. So it's very interesting how the whole world works from an economic point of view in pricing. And we see that as well from region to region. Our judges will look at certain areas and they'll come back and say, this area, their prices are very much more expensive than a different area. And I'm not going to name areas, but we see that, and that's a constant, something constant that we see all along. Just looking at when I started doing the Local Business Awards, which were originally called Small Business Awards, and we renamed them Local. Areas like the Hawkesbury, for instance, or even Castle Hill. Now, to get to Windsor we're at Helston Park now. If we had to go from Helston Park to Windsor, when I started the awards, it would probably take 1.5 to 2 hours. It was a single lane road. Now it would take probably 40 minutes. So the infrastructure has changed considerably. And even going out west, all the new developments are quite amazing. There wasn't that infrastructure, and there wasn't, to go from to the Hawkesbury area, Windsor Road was all bush. There's no bush now along Windsor Road. It's quite interesting. And when we started it, each certificate was typed on a typewriter. Like the names were typed on typewriters. There was no computers. The nominations, the local awards rely on nominations from the public. The public used to send in coupons with businesses' names on it. And basically, we'd get probably 4 post boxes of coupons to open each day. So I had a team of 4 people just counting coupons every day to get to the finalists. And then the day before it closed, we'd probably get 10 boxes from one area of coupons. And then we'd have to sort them all out and get to the finalists. And then even finding the addresses of the businesses, it was the yellow pages or white pages. There was no internet like we have now.
No Google Maps.
No,
Make it so easy to find anything.
None of that. We used to create a map. We used to join, and I say the Gregory's Street Directory. A lot of the young people don't know what a Gregory's Street Directory is. You know, we used to join pages together and have sheets and open it up in the car, and we'd have a trail where we had to go. Yeah, so things have changed considerably, and let's say for the better.
Steve, if I may, what drove the change from small to local? What was it that made you make that shift?
The main thing was, because we're in a local community, we wanted to include all businesses in that local community. So everything from, well, the small businesses, first of all. We wanted franchises. We were hitting problems where a franchise business would win, and the small business people would say, but they've got the backing of the marketing of a franchise. We wanted to include all shopping centres, all types of chain stores. So local businesses brought the whole community together. The councils most areas are council sponsors. They were happy that we're including the total community. And we're including the consumers as well through the voting component of it. So we're including everyone in a local community. It has worked really well. And now you say local business awards, everyone knows it. Oh, that's the gold logo with the red background. I hear that all the time. I recently interviewed 20 people or so, and I showed them logo in the interview. I said, do you know this? They all knew that brand. And of course, we instigated certain things, like the decal in shops, and the certificates where people put them up. So that's all marketing for our brand as well. So, let me just quickly move on to how the Champions program originated. Back in 1999, we decided to put all the local winners against one another. So at the time, we were running around 20 programs a year. We invited all the winners to enter the Champions program. So they basically answered a questionnaire, sent it in to us. We had a judging panel that looked at the answers and decided the winners. So they were only from the winners from the local awards. And then we had the presentation. The first Champion Awards we ran was at the State Theatre in front of 2,000 people. And that was in 1999. And I think back now and I think, how did I do that? That was just crazy. We had Ita Buttrose emceeing, and then we had entertainment, and it was an amazing night, and it's probably one of the highlights of my career. The only negative with having it at the State Theatre was, as soon as the people's categories came up and went, so did the people. So by the end of the night, the theatre was only half full because everyone left. They heard their category, they left. There was no reason for them to stay back. So that's when then we initiated the sit-down dinner, and the rest is history. Where we had 2 nights this year, a Friday and Saturday night, with over 1,000 people each night for a sit-down dinner. Yeah, it's huge. It's huge, and the number of people that fly in from Western Australia and Tasmania and Darwin, it's mind-boggling that people are that motivated to be part of this big event, and that's what it is. It's a huge event, recognising small business, and there's no other small business program like this in Australia, and that's why people are motivated to be part of it, and it's prestigious. It's a great night out for everyone. Everyone has a great time, and that's really what it's about. And it gets back to giving. You know, it's all about saying a thank you to all these hard-working business people, and especially small business people.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Steve, you mentioned, the changes at Precedent Productions themselves, like how infrastructure changes came about, so it was easier for you to get to places. The difference, with the street directories. I always said I'm actually going to buy one to show my children just how, I still remember Steve pulling over and, working out where I'm going next, because I wasn't that good with a big, fold out. But it was quite tricky, but we did it then, but it's a lot easier now, of course.
That's right.
Over the 40 years, you would have seen a significant change with small businesses themselves. Is there any significant changes that are so big that you'd love to share with us over whatever, industry that you've seen over the 40 years?
For sure. When the program started, it was 90% retail.
Wow.
And 10% service. It's the other way around now. I'm not saying retail's 10%, but it's probably 75% service and 25% retail. And basically, when we started, there was no professional services because in planning an event like that or a program like that, our minds didn't allow us to think, how can you recognise a doctor's surgery or a lawyer, a legal company, or a marketing company? Because you can't. Our thoughts were still with sending in anonymous judges. It wasn't about, but we can do that these days because the information has to be provided by the business. But the styles of businesses has changed dramatically. We've seen, for instance, we struggle to get pharmacies to enter these days because they've been killed off by a number of these large outlets, pharmacy outlets, fruit and vegetable stores. How many? You don't see as many now as you used to. That used to be a big industry, but there was no IT industries. There was no website developers back then. That's a massive industry. We have IT. We have technology. I'm just thinking of some categories now. Just have a look at the categories. But some of these categories, I look now at some of the categories. NDIS. There's no NDIS. There was never any financial services as such. So basically, categories have changed, and we've changed as a society as well. The whole world continually changes. Migration services, like I'm looking at the categories, digital marketing, transport and logistics. I mentioned information technology, I mentioned web development, even things like speech pathology. Was there podiatrists back then, or you just went to your doctor? Was there an optometrist? Yeah, there probably was optometrists. We all used to wear glasses, but environmental business. You know, it's the talk of the town now, you know, looking after our environment. Our industry, events management, there was no events management. No one knew what that was back then. Was business coaching around? I don't think it was.
I don't think any.
Yeah, or consultancy, all of that. So the styles of businesses has changed over that time.
And what about, Steve, digital? We mentioned digital technologies, but then we've got things like AI now. And I know, you know, we've had chats about this. Has this impacted perhaps even Precedent Productions, you know, your business, or have you seen it impact small businesses that you're dealing with?
Okay, first of all, Precedent Productions, I've never opened an AI program. I don't want to open it. I do all my own writing because it comes from my heart. But in saying that, in 1 year, from last year's applications to this year's applications, AI is massive. But what it's done, it's created an even playing field. What I mean by that is all the entries, whatever category it is, you can read them and you don't know what that business does. AI mellows it all down. One of the questions is, why is your business outstanding? It's words along those lines. Or why should your business be named a champion? I reckon 60% of the answers there, you can read it, you don't even know what kind of business it is. So this year, it's been an explosion of AI, which is, I have to say, not for the better. Yes, more people enter, but it's not about that. It's the judges need to decide on who's a better business, and when the answers are the same for 2 or 3 different categories, that says something. When you see the same phrases being used in the answers all the time, it's just it. And we had judges that if they sort of AI, they put the entry to the side. They wouldn't even continue reading it. That's how, because it doesn't answer the question.
I think it's a very similar problem with job applications. I just think I've seen it before. You receive the job application. It's like, okay, AI, next.
Oh, yeah.
It's a real easy way to filter which ones haven't done their work.
Yeah. The first question of champions is describe the products and services your business provides. I can tell you probably 10% of businesses, you read the answer and you don't know what they do in their business. There's even times that the AI answer was there and they didn't even fill in the blanks, fill in their business name, and actually had brackets, include business name here. Like, it just, it's an easy way out. I want to talk about the way, the trends of business, like applications. For the Champions program that we just completed, we received 5,500 applications from around Australia. Those applications come in. We opened applications in November last year. We got 2,500 of them in the last 2 days before it closed. Now, it's sad that businesses, like people that want to be part of the awards, but they leave it to the last 2 days. To the point of the closing time was midnight. At 9:30 that night, the computer our website couldn't handle anymore, and it crashed because there was just so many people doing the application at that time. People don't plan. You know, when you've got that much time, they shouldn't be leaving it to the last minute. These are trends that we see every year. And we watch throughout the day. On that last day, there's probably over 1,000 people working on their submission right through the day. And then it peaks in the night that night before closing.
There's probably a valuable business lesson in that in itself. Like, Steve, do you see a trend in the ones that submit it earlier, a better application, as opposed to perhaps the more rushed ones that have a deadline and are just getting it across the line?
Absolutely. That's right.
Yeah.
The ones that put it in early have thought about each answer, and they generally end up the winners too.
And Steve, the judges, where do you find the knowledgeable judges from? How do you tap into expertise in that regard?
We had over 50 judges this year. We look at accountants, university people, people that had small businesses themselves in the past, retirees, CEOs. So we get a nice mix of different people. And through my network, ultimately, I call on different people. They have to apply, and then they have to be accepted as judges. We do get people that want to judge, but they don't always. We don't always take them straight away. We have to sort of ensure they fit in. The judging takes place. We have 2 main days where we'll have about 40 people each day, and then we have another 3 days where we have smaller groups, and they look at the individual categories as well: entrepreneurs, the growth award, the business of the decade. So it's that in itself is quite a feat in sourcing the judges, accepting them, and then the days itself. There's and the unfortunate thing at the moment, we're printing entry out. We're not doing it online. Personally, I like the days where we get all these people together, and that's another part of the program that people don't normally see. They're all getting together, they're sharing their ideas, they're getting to know one another as well. And then a lot of the judges like to sit together at the presentation evening. So it's another form of networking and getting to know different business people.
Look, sorry, Roger, were you going to say something?
No, I was curious as to what's your fondest memory of someone celebrating when they won an award. You must have seen tears and all sorts of colors.
You see tears all the time.
Mm.
We had a guy get up and do a shoey. You know what a shoey is?
So when they drink from their shoe?
Drank a beer out of his shoe.
Yes.
How disgusting.
Did he run a pub? No.
No. I think it was a plumber.
Oh, goodness.
But the number of times that people get up and say, we've been working for 20 years. It's the first time we've got recognition.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. That sort of confirms to me that I'm doing something right, that we're recognising these great people. And then Sorry,
I was going to say, I had the pleasure of attending the Local Business Awards, a function last year for Liverpool, and we had a table. And I just remember, like, not only do you glam up, it's quite an elegant evening. You know, you have a nice meal with everyone, you get your network. You're right, Steve. But the excitement that you get, you know, when people are announced on the screen as finalists, there is so much excitement in the room, and you feel it when the winner's announced. You know, you feel that emotion because they are genuinely so excited. So I get it. They're like completely, when they're up there, I've seen the tears, I've seen the excitement, and I do recall those that have said that they've been in the industry for 30 years. It's the first time they've received an award, etc. It is beautiful. But, yeah.
Natalie, were you there as a finalist?
My husband was there as a finalist. Jared was there. Yeah. So we did have a table, a full table with invited clients.
When the business name was announced as a finalist, was your heart beating?
Yes, totally. It was
amazing. Quite amazing. I have been on the other side many, many years ago, and I still recall when they call my name out, my heart was just beating.
Yep.
And it seemed to be a long time from the time the business was announced to the announcement of the winner. It just couldn't come quick enough. It's just, I don't know, it creates some sort of, let's say, endorphins or something. It creates something in people.
It's an incredible feeling. It is. Steve, is there anything from the winners that win these awards? Are there any lessons that other small businesses can learn from them? Is there a commonality, common characteristics of these winners? Because everyone wants to win, right? So they want to be the best in their field, whether they're the local, our local, I was saying to Roger, our cake shop won. I love them. They're amazing. I was so proud when they won our local business awards, and then a local gym. They're all competing. They all want that. But is there something that they have in common?
Okay. What they have in common is good customer service. What I see often is businesses win and they don't tell the world. They have to milk that award. They have to basically get as much exposure as possible. Now, it's easier now with social media. You can speak to a lot of local communities have local radio stations that they're always plugging. There's local papers still around. There's telling your customers, send out a special. So we're celebrating our win. come and get 10% off this week. We had years ago a fish and chip shop that was in Drummoyne. That was, let's say, a good business. After they won the awards, they took out, local newspaper was different in those days, but they took out an ad, and the top of the ad said, "The greatest fish and chips in the universe." And then they made signs in the shop, "Greatest fish and chips in the universe." That became their brand. What happened to that the good shop? It became great. And every night from 5:30 in the afternoon and every weekend, they had lines of people. That never happened before they won the awards. Now, that's just something very simple that they did, and they're still going strong today. And I'm talking about the first time they won it. It has to be 20 years ago, maybe even more. So that them winning, and since that time, I think they've probably won at least 10 times more. So that in itself. Now, the other one that comes to mind is, I don't know if either of you know Gina Field. Now, Gina runs a security company in Penrith, Nepean Regional Security. Gina won the local awards and champions. She's won a number of times. Now, once again, she marketed her win, and as a result, she put in government tenders. Because she won the award, she got the tenders. And now I'd have to say she runs a multi-million-dollar organisation. She was probably the only female years ago running a security company. Now, she used the awards, and I think she does security for the parks of Western Sydney, but a lot of the government agencies, Penrith Council, I believe. So that's someone else that's used the awards to gain business. And that's really what everyone should be doing. Just tell the world, tell whoever you know, use the brand, use one of these, and this is the local awards. Plaster that up everywhere. Have it on your counter, have your signage. We give everyone posters, we give them decals. So it's up to them to sort of market it, rather than, I won the award, thank you very much. The other thing is, use the awards to build morale for your internal team. Everyone wants to celebrate. Celebrate with them separate to the awards night. Bring them along on the night, but celebrate afterwards as well. Give them all a memento, take them all out for dinner, whatever. Make them feel special because they're the ones that help gain the awards.
That's amazing. Steve, trades. Let's talk about the trade services because they now have their own awards. Yep. Am I correct?
Yep.
Why do we need a completely separate? Like, obviously, something's changed. They were previously just combined in their own local business awards, and now they've got their own.
Basically, we decided on trades because, well, one, they're calling out to us, but as consumers, as being in a local community, or being very important part of every local community, and they're often forgotten. You go home tonight and the lights go out. What do you do automatically? Call the electrician. You've got you've got a blockage. Who do you call? The plumber. We just take all them for granted. Now, it was time that they got recognised. And last year we launched this program, and as great as the event was, people were coming up to me and saying, "We didn't realise how big this was. We're really getting all our team together for next year. This is amazing. This is what we needed in our industry." So once again, it's recognising and really, you got a leaking roof. Who do you call? A tradesperson. So it was time that they got recognised by themselves. And it's interesting because when we launched this program last year, I think I had every television station wanting to interview me because it was so unique. And Natalie, they asked exactly the same question. Why do you need a Trades Awards? Because, once again, we're saying thank you to them. Thank you for the great service, because they also come any time of the day. When there's an emergency, they're the ones there on your doorstep. So yeah, we're excited about that program, and it's gone so well for us. We're actually launching it in 2 weeks' time. So any tradespeople out there that would like to enter, they can look at the website for that.
And Steve, if they're hesitant, I guess some people don't think that they're worthy of recognition, or they're not really sure, the competition's tough out there. What would be your recommendation to those that are listening in now? They're a local plumber, they've got, 3 staff. Maybe I'm not big enough to enter, is what they're thinking, because their competitors have 15 staff, or,
Sure.
What would be your advice to those?
My advice is enter it, because, as I said earlier, it's an equal playing field, whether you're a large business or a smaller one. But for plumbers, electricians, builders, because we had such an influx of those industries, we're actually, last year, after the close of entries, we created 3 different categories: a small, a medium, and a large, based on their turnover, which they tell us. So we're able to give a lot more awards out and make it a little bit more equal to give the smaller ones a go at entering.
Excellent. I'm going to have to look this up after. I think I'm so used to the local business awards now that they've got their own sector. I think that's absolutely brilliant. What about women then, Steve? Over the 40 years, have you seen a change in women in business?
Absolutely. Let's say 20 years ago, we'd go to the awards and it'd be probably, out of 30 categories, 25 would be men, 5 would be women. Now, you look at the majority of women, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And this year will be the 3rd year that we've run the women's program, and it includes every category basically. And in the 3 years we've had a great influx. We've had a great interest from women. The night itself is quite unique as well, in that, I don't know, women are very tribal. They all stick to themselves. Now, there's all these clusters of women all cheering for each other around the room. It was very different. And that's something else, actually, I want to talk about very quickly. Every event we do is very different, even though, like the Business Award we just ran on Friday and Saturday 2 weeks ago, the 2 nights were completely different to one another, yet we presented the same thing. Our local awards, you go to a local awards at Liverpool, It's very different to the inner west of Sydney or the North Shore. It's quite amazing that happens. Now, what we're talking about, women's as well, apart from the usual categories, we have an entrepreneur, as we do in the normal awards, and a young entrepreneur, which is under 30 years old. We also have a special category of champion influential woman, who's someone who basically they influence people, whether it's their team or their local community. And then we have a champion woman icon, which is someone who's been around for a long time and really contributed to the industry and to the community and ultimately Australia as well. So, and our first woman icon was a lady from Darwin who runs a garden centre. And not only does she run the garden centre, she's on a national board of garden industry people. She goes all around the world, looking at, speaking at garden conferences, and she's been a judge as well of garden industry awards. So she's someone that's really contributed to that industry. Yeah. So once again, the women's categories or women's awards will open in 2 weeks' time.
Oh, that's brilliant. And Steve, the local business awards, obviously they've been around for a while, and we know businesses need to be innovative and all those things to stay around. Now, it's succeeded for a long time. What is your key to success here? How have you remained relevant? Because as I said, I attended 2 years ago. It was amazing. Oh, no, not 2 years ago, last year. It was amazing. The atmosphere was great. You can't say that it's an older business because it's been around for 40 years, because it did not feel like that as well. So what is the key to success?
Ultimately,
how do you do this? You
have to change with the times. So what you just said, you got to keep relevant. People, if we don't change to what people want, and this is exactly what customer service is all about. Each business has to look at its customers and know exactly what they want. We can't give awards to, let's say, an encyclopedia salesperson. There's no encyclopedias these days. We have to drop that category and look at today's relevant categories. We've got to change with the times. We have a new business category that's a huge category every year, because so many businesses, so many startups that want to be recognised as well. So it's about being relevant, being part of today's world. And that's what we do. And even from area to area, the categories differ slightly because ultimately each area is got its uniqueness. We have to analyse that each year. We look at everything from the participation, in other words, how many businesses are nominated, how many businesses fill in their application information, how many people attend the evenings. We have categories that no business attends, yet there's finalists in it. Now, what do we do for the following year? We drop the category because obviously it's not relevant anymore. So, and then we get a couple of little complaints here and there. Why is our category dropped? Get the businesses involved to be part of it. So we got to do what's going on in each area too.
That's an important message. Check your data, everyone, isn't it, to stay relevant?
That's right.
Stay on top of it. And Steve, for everyone listening in, those that want to learn more about the awards, is there a website they can go to?
If
Where
they
can
just
they go?
Google local business awards, and they can find it very easy, top of the page, and
Brilliant.
Australian Small Business Champion Awards. And they'll
Excellent. And
find,
we'll be putting links in with the podcast as well.
oh, good.
So
Fabulous.
there will be links to that as well.
Okay.
We are out of time, and I'm sure we have so many more questions we could have asked you, Steve, but I'm going to hand it over to Roger to wrap up.
Thank you.
Over to you, Roger.
Thank you very much. Well, what a wonderful hour we've had with Steve Lowe, whose motto is "Life is about giving." What a wonderful way to open this podcast. And we would love to have lunch with Aristotle Onassis. I can't remember the dish that you would serve, but it would be a wonderful dish. So Steve's all about the local business awards, 40 years young as a setup, and still reinventing itself, going national to Brisbane and Melbourne shortly. So lots to look forward to in terms of the awards scene. Steve grew up in a small business, and it's really what drew him into, I think, dedicating his lifetime of work to this aspect of business. Did the chores 7 days a week, and when his parents finally sold their business and presumably went into retirement, realized there was just no recognition for not only the hard work that they've done, but the service that they'd given to the community. And I think it is this sense of belonging to a community which has inspired you, Steve, over the last 4 decades or so. This is now a thriving business for you. And through the awards, you have developed this very deep knowledge of how a good business is run. And I love this link between, if the management is healthy and has a good management style, then the customer service that the business gives to their customers is typically aligned with that. So if you're a poor manager, you've probably got poor customer service. So some really important things to hang on to there. Local is the word here, about bringing the community together, saying thank you, being inclusive, this trajectory of small to local to having champions programs. Everything's about giving back for Steve. There's a lovely loop here as we see listening to you over the last hour. Things for us to note: this shift from heavy buys from retail towards more services. Now 75% of applicants for the awards are more service oriented. So the world of work keeps on changing. The advent of new categories, things like digital marketing, the environmental businesses that Steve referred to, and even business coaching and consultancy. The challenges of AI in a business, it's not all great. It can, I think, give some shortcuts, but Steve eloquently put forward how writing from the heart is still incredibly important in business to get the right message across to your target audience. And, it's an interesting side conversation about how applicants for jobs or even for business awards can easily be spotted if they've used AI as a tool. So be careful in the use of AI. Be smart, I think, is one of the learnings. Good insights from the judging pool. They have to fight for those positions, and then they have to, work hard and collaboratively in order to award the right businesses with these accolades. Never forget to build morale and celebrate successes in the business, be it a business award or anything else. The notion of celebrating successes in business is incredibly important. And I just think, to round off, this notion of reinventing oneself is critical in business. The advent of the trades awards, we've got the diversity and the women's programs coming through. It's incredibly important to remain relevant with the words that we used. And that's all about adapting. And often, and Steve spoke to this, it's about using the data, which is always at your fingertips, using it intelligently to work out what the right next moves are in business. Steve, wonderful to spend an hour with you. Thoroughly enjoyed that, and I wish you every success going forward.
Thank you, Roger, and thank you, Natalie.
Thank you, Steve. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. For more information on Leader Talk and for some great resources to help your business grow, check out brainiact.com.au. Bye, everyone.